Thanks for listening to the Northwest Yearly Meeting podcast. We hope that you find the conversations to be helpful and enlightening as you get to hear from those involved in the Evangelical Friends movement. Be sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss when a new episode comes out. Now, enjoy the episode.
All right. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Northwest Yearly Meeting podcast. It is September, which means officially summer is over. And since this comes out at the first of the month, this will be coming in, this is available to you over Labor Day. So you could be listening to this on your nice holiday weekend.
Now, Jacob.
Yes.
Are you a pumpkin spice person?
I am. When it comes to the Starbucks stuff, I prefer the salted caramel mocha of the two fall drinks that they release, but I do like the pumpkin spice.
Pumpkins, it's the season of pumpkin spice.
I know.
Spice must flow.
I will say it's just I enjoy the fall. I think the fall is potentially my favorite season. If not, it's a close second to winter. I like the cooler weather. I like the fall. All the stuff that comes with it. You're talking pumpkin spice. Just any like seasonal foods I think are better in the fall than like there's not really summer. I mean, I guess there is summer seasonal foods, but I prefer the stuff in the fall and the winter.
Are you kidding me? There's not seasonal summer food?
I know. I was
Let me see.
Grilling, anything on the grill is summer seasonal
or
food.
any vegetable.
That is true.
Tomatoes, peppers. I mean, summer is seasonal food, but
which I guess that just shows my hand. I would prefer salted caramel mocha over vegetables. But yeah,
well,
hopefully if you get on the ball and you're someone who's listening to this at the beginning of the month, you've got some time off of work. You can enjoy listening to this. And if not, if you're listening at the end of the month, that's fine too. But our guest today is Jeanine Shana, and she's going to come in a second. But she is a speaker at one of the yearly meeting women's retreats. And there's actually 2 women's retreats happening at the end of this month. And so we wanted to take a moment to just highlight this, because if you are listening at the beginning of the month, if it's like September 1st, 4th, even probably the 8th, it would not be too late for you to sign up for either one of these. So there's going to be one in McCall, Idaho at Quaker Hill. And that's at the end of the month. That's the one that Jeanine is going to be speaking at. So we'll hear a little bit more about that. But that is I got to get this right. That is the Rise Retreat. And then in Oregon at Twin Rocks, we have the Shine Retreat. So there's Rise and Shine. See, it's a little cutesy thing like that. But the Rise Retreat is in Idaho. And the Shine Retreat is at Twin Rocks, and that's September 29th to October 1st. And so both of those, if you're listening right now, it's the beginning of the month, you haven't signed up, you're interested in that, those are still open for registration. And those would be great experiences to get together for community, fellowship, to hear some great worship, some great speakers, and enjoy some time in beautiful McCall or on the Oregon coast.
I also want to plug Men's Retreat at Twin Rocks is also in September.
That is true. There is a men's retreat at Twin Rocks in September as well.
And it's in the middle of the month. It's like the 15th through the 17th or something like that.
Okay.
So September is also the season for retreats.
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, I don't know. You might see this at your church, Austin. I think a lot of churches see this. Like in the summer, people are traveling. It's very, in a way, chaotic. Like someone's here one week and they're gone the next on vacation. And so now that people are getting back into school, summer's ending, we're entering the fall, people are here more often. And so it makes sense to have these retreats be in the fall as people are getting back into their routines of being home more often, to just kick things off. And so if you're thinking about that, if you have never attended a women's retreat or men's retreat before, we would encourage you to do that. They can be really awesome times of community and getting to know other people, not just within your own church. Like if you get a group of people from your church to go, and you guys spend some time together over the weekend, but also meeting people from other friends' churches in your surrounding area. With that said, I'm going to bring Jeanine in here and we can talk to her a little bit.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry to make you wait. We had to do a little chatting beforehand.
That's okay. It just with my techie skills, I'm partly wondering, did I do something wrong?
Nope,
But,
you were
but
all
no.
right.
Good. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. This is fun.
Yeah. Have you ever done a podcast before?
I have not. I've
Oh.
listened to some.
Okay. Do you listen to podcasts regularly?
No.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, if you did, what would be one of your favorite podcasts?
Well, since I've listened to so few, the one I listened to recently with Austin and Jacob and Manny Garcia was pretty cool.
Oh, there you go. If you haven't listened to that one last
I
week or
recently
last
did
month,
listen. I've listened to some Brene Brown podcast,
Okay.
and I don't remember a few other random ones.
yeah, those are good ones. I mean, thanks for lumping us in with Brene Brown. We'll take
Well,
that.
there you go.
I mean, TED speaker extraordinaire.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I enjoyed the one with Manny, and I've had a few people come up to me afterwards and be like, I really liked that. Both people who got to go to yearly meeting and hear him there, and people who didn't get to go to yearly meeting and didn't hear him. So I know people enjoyed that. So if you didn't listen last month, you can go find that other episode with Manny Garcia.
Excellent.
Good stuff.
Yep.
So yeah, so Manny is the superintendent of Iowa Yearly Meeting, and now we've got Jeanine Lashana, who is the wife of the superintendent of Northwest Yearly Meeting. So, would you mind just introducing yourself, Jeanine? A little bit about you, maybe a little bit of your like friends' history of like where you started and how you came to Northwest.
Well, yes, I was born in Saskatchewan, Canada, and grew up in Medicine Hat, Alberta. And there were no Friends churches, so I did not grow up going to a Friends church. However, my dad was born and raised in Greenleaf, Idaho. So I have 2 generations ago lots of Friends connections, and still have people I'm related to in Northwest Yearly Meeting. So that's the Friends connection. For me personally, it happened when I came to college at George Fox University in 1977 and learned more about who Friends were. And my senior year of college began dating Jim and attending Newburgh Friends Church. So that was kind of where it all started.
There you go. And then you've kind of been, I mean, as someone who didn't grow up Friends, then you kind of got thrown into it. You know, you were at a pretty large Friends church in Southern California for a while, and then you and Jim were at Barkley for a while.
Correct.
Yeah. So you've been to some pretty large Friends church affiliated places for someone who didn't get into the Friends game for quite some time.
Yes. I remember early on something that I really liked, and it's not necessarily a part of all Friends churches, but I liked the time of silent worship of growing up in the church I did. It felt like there was always music in the background. During prayer time, the organ was playing. During whatever, there was always background music. And that was something early on that I loved, that was different about Friends. And at Newburgh Friends, that's been a big part of the way they do things. And so I still appreciate that.
Yeah, I think I mean, I grew up Friends, and so I do appreciate that, but I think sometimes it's easy for me to take that for granted. Like having only ever really attended churches and been a part of churches that always do things like that with the time of silence and open worship. I'm curious, Austin, for you, as someone who didn't grow up Friends too, what was that like for you?
Well, my experience was similar to Jeanine's in the fact that I didn't grow up a Christian, but when I did become a Christian, I attended a Pentecostal church, and always music. The music was really good, and that was something that and they're very spirit led, and but it was very loud. constantly. Like there was not a moment where there wasn't noise of some kind. And so I remember my first time going to attending a friend's, service was at Newburgh Friends, and they had like this lengthy moment of open worship, and I felt it was the greatest thing I've ever experienced. And I was like, oh man, this is so good. But yeah, I had a very similar experience where it was just very, very loud, which isn't a bad thing all the time.
Yeah.
It has, I think that like, having some noises is a good thing.
Sure.
No, yeah. It's just finding a balance is, I think, the good thing. So Jeanine, we had you come on here. We saw that you're scheduled to be the speaker at Rise Retreat in just a few weeks here. And so actually we did this last year, a year ago in September, the episode we had with Christy Davis. She was the speaker at Rise Retreat. And so in a way, it's kind of the same. Obviously, we know you guys are going to speak on different things, so there's some different stuff there. But without spoiling the retreat, because this will come out before people come to retreat, so we don't want you to give it all away there. We want people to come to the retreat and enjoy the time there. But so without giving it all away, what are you planning to speak about, and maybe how did you arrive on that topic?
I'm still working on it. It's not done. And you guys both prepare sermons regularly, and preparing talks for me is just, it's a little overwhelming. And I feel like somebody handed me 3 boxes of puzzle pieces with no picture on the outside and said, here, make 3 puzzles. And so I'm still shaping a little bit, but they did ask me with the theme renovare in mind, and renovare just means renew or restore. And then they've kind of added a sub theme to the retreat about a firm foundation. And in talking with Ellen Morse, who's been the person that asked me and has been talking with me, she likened the connection of those two ideas with a barn that they have that has a partial foundation, and that they can't really renovate and move forward on the barn until that foundation is set properly. And so trying to kind of run with that at the retreat. But the first talk is going to be about our spiritual renewal and looking at the life of David and his prayer after his sin with Bathsheba: create in me a clean heart and renew a right spirit within me, restore to me the joy of your salvation. So talking about really the foundation of our lives, our faith in Jesus Christ and our right relationship with him. And then the second talk, we're gonna think about our emotional and physical health. And Jim turned me to an interesting character that I haven't spent a lot of time since childhood thinking about, and that is Elijah, and the story of his depression and his hiding under a broom tree and not eating and not moving and wanting to die, and how we all can find ourselves in places like that, of just being physically, emotionally, and mentally at a place of depletion, and how do we find renewal for that part of our lives. And then the third talk is going to be about relational renewal, and I'm going to talk about the ladies that Paul calls out in the New Testament for their squabbling. We don't know exactly what their fight was about, but he tells them they need to start getting along. And so we're going to talk about getting along with each other and forgiveness, and how to renew our relationships in a way that God would want us to, especially in the church. So that's kind of where we're going. So we'll see. Like I said, right now it feels a little like there's a lot of puzzle pieces that are kind of scattered, and I'm trying to fit them in. Takes way more work than I ever think it should, but it just does. And
Amen.
anyway.
I feel like that like every week. So it's like
Yeah.
I was like working on my sermon today, and I'm like, how is this gonna get done? It's Wednesday. There's all these like puzzle pieces everywhere, and I'm like, I don't even know where this is going right now. So it's like, I mean, I know where it's going, but like I feel you in the sense of it feels a little, messy at the point. At this
Yeah.
point. And that's
Yeah.
totally fine.
Yeah, apparently it makes sense up here, and then I go to write it out and I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Have you ever done much speaking before, or
I have not. When we were at Rose Drive, I spoke to some women's things a handful of times. And then I did the Northwest Early Meeting Women's Retreat a few years ago, and Meridian Church Retreat a year and a half ago. And then this is my third time doing a retreat, and getting ready for 3 talks it's overwhelming, because they have to be kind of mutually exclusive, but kind of
Build upon each
related.
other.
And anyway, I feel in
Mhm.
over my head big time.
Yeah.
So
Austin can probably relate to that, because I just had
Yeah.
Austin. He was the speaker at our junior high and senior high camp a couple months ago. So kind of the same thing. You got to have 5 talks that need to stand alone each night, but also build upon each other each night. Yeah.
and all connect with the same theme. And yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. But like, at least my experience is it was a really great experience in the end. And it's a big honor. And I know when I went to like summer camp, it was a lot of fun. So what are you most looking forward to at the retreat?
I'm looking forward to it being done. But at the retreat, I've been to Quaker Hill one other time, so just looking forward to being there, because it's just so beautiful, and connecting with the ladies that are there, having conversations, and the preparing, as you guys know, I feel like I'm sure I learn more than what I end up saying, and I'm anticipating that I'm going to learn something more as well. But I would say the 2 top things would be just being there and being around people, and making new connections.
So would you say you're an extrovert? You enjoy being around people? And
I'm actually not. I think I'm friendly. I think I meet people easily. I think I'm a good listener. I'm told I am, but I'm really happy to just be at home. And I don't like chomp at the bit to get together with people and be social. So I think that makes me, there's a term for an introverted extrovert. What is that?
An ambivert.
That's what I am, I think.
Oh,
I think that's what I might be.
that's
And
a good term to me.
Jim is too, so that's helpful that we're both kind of like that. We both, a lot of our lives have been looked extrovert, but we are not textbook extroverts at all.
Yeah, I feel you on. I am a serious ambivert. Like if there's like if there's a spectrum, I'm towards the center, where it's like I'm friendly and outgoing, and I like people, and I like spending time with people, but I get really exhausted, and I need a lot of alone time, and I like spending time at my house away from people, and but I also like entertaining, right? So
There you go.
There you go.
Got to do both.
What about you, Jacob? What are you?
For the longest time, I feel like extrovert, tried and true, extrovert. I don't know if I was going to say if it's in my old age, and some of you would probably laugh on it, but I feel like as I've gotten older, I'm I'm slowly maybe trending more towards the what you guys are saying, a little bit of both. I
Yeah.
find myself being more okay with being at home than I used to always be, like wanting to go out and be with people, which I still want to a lot of times. But yeah, I'm okay with staying home a few times, especially having a baby recently. It's like that changes things a little bit. It's like I'd rather be at home with him than with most people most days. So this question wasn't, we sent you some questions ahead of time. This wasn't sent to you ahead of time. And so um yeah, I'm just gonna ask this and then we can move on from it if you don't want to go too into it or whatever. But looking at the theme, and I was thinking about this when you're talking about firm foundation and even kind of what you were just talking about, what you're gonna share on the first 2 nights, I was just like, wow, I really think you're going to be a great speaker on that. And in a way, I wish I could hear it. But I just like, it made me think about you and asking you, like, how has God been your firm foundation through like some of the stuff that you guys have been going through recently with like your son? And I'm sure a lot of people know some of the health stuff that he's got going on, but I'm sure that maybe ties into some of your talk, so you don't have to give it all away. But I just think you would be a great talk for that. Like someone, you're really living out, I think, God being your firm foundation through some big stuff in your life.
Yeah. For those that don't know, we have 4 adult children, and our oldest son, Jason, was diagnosed with 2 forms of very rare sarcoma about 5 years ago. And it's been a horrendous journey. We call it horrible and holy because it really has been both. And I guess the best way, I think what you're asking, the best way to answer it would be is that nothing feels certain.
Mhm.
And for me, the only real thing is that God is with me.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's felt like that's all I got. I don't always feel like he's moving the way I want him to or fast enough, but I believe that he is with me. Early on in his cancer diagnosis, a biblical story that troubled me, but actually became comforting after a while, was the storm at sea where Jesus is asleep in the boat. And I felt like, hey, God, we've got this storm going and you are full on sleeping and we're crashing. And it felt like bad news, bad news, bad news, bad news. And, we were going down. And I don't know if it's a right way to look at it, but suddenly I had this feeling of Jesus is sleeping, but he's in the boat. And that sometimes I don't see God or understand what he's doing, but he's still with me. And sort of in my head coined this phrase, my sleeping God. And I would, even in my prayers, I would yell, wake up, God. And I don't know. It's almost hard for me to express it, except just to say that I have been confident when I can't pray, when I don't see that he is present, that he is with me, that I'm not alone. Jason's not alone. So
No, yeah.
that's it.
I
That's
think
all I
that's
got.
good. No, I think that's good. And like, I mean, you said it's a very rare situation that your son is in. And so people probably can't relate to that specific situation. But I think a lot of people listening and people coming to the retreat have something in their life, whether it's a relational thing or a medical thing or something that's going on that they probably feel helpless in, like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a good message. And like you said, reading that story, I could see how reading that story you'd be like, that is not comforting to know that he's just sleeping over here. But
so and a song on repeat on their playlist was the let's see, I can't think of the song now. It's a Hill song. Anyway, there's a song about Oh, Peace Be Still. I can't remember it. So bad illustration. The 64-year-old brain is like a sieve. So, but there was a song at the time that also talked about winds and waves still hear your voice, and trusting that God was still in control, and that these winds and these waves heard him. So anyway,
yeah, that story has always, it has comforted me and troubled me all at the same time, because that, like, I'm thinking of I believe it's the version in Mark where, like, Jesus, after they like wake him up, Jesus chastises the disciples, and I'm like, is that super fair, Jesus? Like, like, you were sleeping and they were kind of drowning.
Yeah.
And
but he's got it.
I know.
Yeah. he's present.
Yeah.
He's present even if the ship crashes. I have to trust that he's present. And that because hard things happen.
Yeah. That's like, it's when I hear you say that, it's like, yeah, that's true, but that's hard. I think everyone has to come to that realization on their own, and that's a journey for some people, depending on whatever they're going through or whatever they've got going on in their life.
Yeah, that reminds me of the John Mark McMillan song, "The Road, the Rocks, and the Weeds," where I can't think of the lyric right now, but precisely, but the gist is of, like, in the song that the Joe Mark, he's talking about his own, he's dealing with his daughter who's asking him tough questions about, like, why is there, like, painful things in the world, and, like, he can't stop it all, but at least God's present in the midst of our suffering. And that compared to the other gods, like, in the world, like, that's not like a thing that's normally associated with them.
Right.
Like, in the line that's like, who is Zeus wouldn't suffer for the weak. And I thought that, I was like, that's true. Like, if you look at other I don't know, other faiths, it's not, you don't have this picture of a suffering God who suffers with people and in their humanity. And that's just like a profound mystery to contemplate, right? That, like, suffering exists in the world, and like, God is good and doesn't want suffering, but yet allows suffering to happen. But on the flip side, it's like, he's not doing this because he has experience with it, right? So it's not like he himself, like, hasn't gone through those things too, even unto death.
Yeah. Well, we mentioned this before you came on, but this obviously comes out before the women's retreat. There's 2 women's retreats happening. There's the one you're speaking at, and there's another one at Twin Rocks. And so, what would you say if someone's listening right now, there's a woman listening, and she isn't currently signed up to attend either one of those? What would you say to someone who's maybe on the fence? Like, maybe someone's asked them to come to women's retreat and they're like, I don't know about that. I've never gone to retreats before. It's not really my thing. What would you say to someone who's on the fence to maybe encourage them to sign up in the next 2 or 3 weeks to attend one of those retreats?
Well, I think it's a great way to spend a weekend, and there's something different that happens when you leave behind your stuff, your routine at home, your house, your bed, and you go somewhere else. And I think there's a vulnerability that can happen, and an opportunity to learn more about yourself, more about the Lord, to grow deeper in relationship with people, and talk about 2 gorgeous places, Twin Rocks or Quaker Hill. Wow. Just the being there will feed your soul. Put aside the food and the music and whatever speaking happens, just to be near the ocean or in the mountains is a spiritual experience when it's away from the things that kind of bug you at home, that you, the laundry, the whatever. So I'd say just do it, and promise you won't regret it. Promise.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned this last time, either when Christy was on or maybe it was a men's retreat guy, but it's like those things that you think are keeping you from going. You're like, I have so much laundry to catch up on, or I have so much whatever, fill in the blank, that you're like, I just can't get away this weekend. It'll still be there the next weekend. Even if you did stay home and like catch up on laundry or whatever, like your laundry will pile up again in the next week or two. And so it's okay. You can just go. And like you said, I mean, a weekend in McCall or a weekend at the coast.
Yeah.
You can't beat that.
I also just want to speak to the social anxiety that people may be feeling, because I know for those who are introverts going to, especially if you don't know if you don't have a good group of people that you're going with, like this is like one of the reasons why I've never gone to a men's retreat, is that typically I'm like, I don't know anybody, and I'm going to feel awkward, and I'm just not going to do it because of social anxiety, really. That I think that even if it would just be worth it, just to even like if you didn't talk to a single person, I would imagine that it actually would be pretty good anyway. If you just simply went and just for yourself and didn't talk to most people, you'd still have a good time. Though I would put money on it that if you tried to like talk to just a handful of people, you would have a good time.
Oh yeah.
And let me tag on to that if you are going, please make room in your little group for somebody that doesn't have somebody, and you'll be blessed by looking out for somebody that is there alone that needs to be included. So if you are going, make it part of what you do, is that you look out for somebody else.
Yeah. I think most people, especially because they happen kind of like regionally in a way, so there's the one in Idaho and one in Twin Rocks. Like most people are going to be probably generally from that area, and so it's a good way to meet some new people. If you see someone off on their own, you can go say hi, and chances are they live within an hour of where you live, probably just by the nature of these two retreats being kind of more local. And so you could potentially continue to meet up with them and make some friends. There might be some people coming, like Jeanine, coming all the way from Oregon to the McCall one, but there might not be the case for a lot of people. And so you could meet some new people that you can continue to meet with throughout the rest of the year, if that's something you'd be interested in.
True.
Yeah, and just studies have shown that in order to develop friendships, and this is something that like I'm going to get on one of my soapboxes here. And I know that this is true for a lot of adults struggle with having friendship, that like we live in a culture that is struggling with loneliness and struggling with, feeling connection, feeling seen, and it's causing like a whole bunch of problems. But in order to develop relationships, you need to spend time with people. And one of the things as like a pastor, that if you're just going to church on a Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, and you're not really plugged in, beyond that, like you're not going to feel connected, and it's going to take, I did the math, and for the amount of time it takes to feel like you have a friend with somebody, like the amount of time it takes to feel like you'd call somebody a good friend, it would take the equivalent of like 5 years.
Wow.
Of just going on Sundays.
Wow.
And like, I mean, that's where you can compress like basically like almost like a year's worth of social time that you would have like just in between a Sunday service, like at a retreat. And so it turbocharges relationships, which I think is so important. And if you're like, how do I feel connected to my church? Like if you went with your church, it would help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going for a weekend. I mean, that's 72 hours.
Yeah.
That's like, without doing all the math, that's a lot of Sundays.
Sure.
It is a lot of
So
Sundays.
Sure.
yeah, if you're only seeing people for an hour and a half on Sunday mornings, like this is a good way to beef up.
But you're
those
not only
numbers
just
there.
seeing them, because usually you only talk to them for maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's like 6 times for an hour. And then, that's 72. So, do the
Yeah,
math.
it's a lot.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I have a question for you.
Do it.
Or for the both of you, that it like when and this isn't on our list of questions, but I kind of was inspired by one of the themes is renewal is one of the hopes. And I was going to ask, what are things that you've done in your life that have led to spiritual renewal? Is there any like practices that you do, or habits that you've done, or like events that stood out to you that provided some sort of spiritual renewal for you in your relationship with Jesus?
You want to go first, Jacob?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I guess two things that kind of come to mind is like one, in a more quickerly way, I guess, we were talking about silence at the beginning and whatever. I don't always do this, but I try to carve out like at least 2 car rides a week that are more like prayer car rides, if that makes sense. It doesn't have to necessarily be dedicated to like silence, like no radio and whatever. Although I have done that occasionally. But where I'm just driving and just like spend that time as prayer. Because depending on where you're going, that's a good 20-30 minutes. And it's time that you can't do anything else with besides drive. So that's one thing I've tried to do. And then another one, I guess I do this, but I've never really thought about it as spiritual renewal. But in a way, when you ask this question, it's one of the first things that came to my mind would be like time in nature. And people who know me, like I'm not a huge nature person. I definitely don't really like camping, especially tent camping and things like that. But like when Jeanine's talking about a weekend at the coast, I mean, I love being on the water. So beach, I grew up near a beach. Like to me, beach is top tier water. I will settle for a lake or river, but beach is ultimate for me. So anytime
Lake
I
and
can,
stream all the way.
yeah, anytime I can get away and like just spend a day at the beach or spend a day, I love the lake at Quaker Hill, but anytime like that, just sitting there in creation. Like I said, I don't necessarily always sit there and really be focused on that, but I think that I really enjoy those kind of days are refreshing to me.
I think that renewal it's not like an event. It's something that's perpetual. And I've sort of, as I get older, there's a verse that says, Paul said it, well, outwardly I'm wasting away, inwardly I'm being renewed, and feel like, I'm getting older. I know I'm not old, but there's sort of the sense that physically I'm on the back end of life, but inwardly in who I am needs continual renewal. And probably for me, it's walking, it's being outside, it's paying attention to creation, listening and watching. It's also for me, the discipline of being thankful, because there's always something to be thankful for.
Mm-hmm.
And it brings renewal, and it resets me in a way that I continually need. We have elderly parents, so to watch their bodies wasting away, outwardly wasting away, but that they are still in the journey of renewing, that they are continuing to trust God. My mom is 90 and in chemo treatment right now, and she's trusting God, and she's working on being thankful. And so anyway, I think renewal is kind of perpetual, at least it should be. And probably there are things though that help us remind ourselves that we're needing a renewal or a reset or whatever word you want to use.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Austin?
Well, one of the things that I've tried to do and really, really focus on is I try to practice a form of Sabbath. That, like, I know that like Sabbath is a biblical idea, is much larger than just simply taking a day off once a week. But I really try really hard to set aside one day where it's like, I can't really do that on Sunday because I'm a pastor, but setting one day a week where I am mostly like, where it's just, I'm not working on church stuff. I'm not, you know, I kind of try to put the phone away. I try to, you know, spend time with my family and not have a lot of activities. And I found that that's been really helpful. Though the other kind of the big thing that I was thinking about is I don't know if this is true for everybody, but I kind of got messed up in Bible college with my relationship with scripture. Not that it wasn't not that it was bad. Like, it just went like, when I first became a Christian and I read scripture, I read it through this, I would call it this like naivety, where I would just like, I read it and I applied it, and there wasn't a lot of like complicated hoops in my brain to jump through. And like, it was very alive to me at that time. And I struggled with, after leaving Bible college, while I felt like a much deeper appreciation for scripture and a love for scripture, like, it became a much more intellectual exercise, and it became a lot harder to connect it back to my heart. And one of the things that has been really helpful for me is kind of renewing my imagination when it comes to scripture.
Mm-hmm.
Using poetry. So there's a guy, an author named Malcolm Geit, excuse me, Malcolm Geit, and he's one of my favorite authors at the moment, and he just kind of showed me how like a poetic lens can really help transform, like, can move an intellectual part of scripture back down to my heart. And it's been helpful. So I've been trying to, at least in my own like devotional time, like writing poems inspired by various parts of scripture, and that has been very helpful for me.
Cool.
Yeah,
Don't ask me to share right now though.
But and how do you spell Geit?
Guite.
Guite. I'll have to check them out.
Yeah, so
never guessed that spelling.
Yeah, I know. He's an Anglican priest, and he taught poetry at Regent's College in Vancouver, and he has several poetry collections, and I have his After Prayer, and then I've also read his devotional in Advent, which was excellent, because he would take poems and then like reflect on that, had like an Advent theme to them, and then has like a little mini essay. And I really liked that, because as a person who didn't really get poetry very often, because it always felt really like indirect and obtuse and opaque, and I couldn't, like, it just seemed really complicated. He really kind of demystified it all to me, and so then it was like, it helped me kind of like just enjoy it a lot more, because it was like he would have these like little really clear essays being like, oh wow, that's really profound, and then kind of gave me a lens to read poetry. And yeah, granted, a lot of it is kind of obtuse and not very good, but I just kind of just go, that's just bad poetry for me, and I'm just going to find something that I like.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I've got one more question for you, Jeanine, then we'll let you go. Thanks for joining us. This one also is just for fun, and we didn't send it to you ahead of time, but I just thought about this. I always forget every time I talk to you that you were born in Canada.
Yeah.
And so my question for you is, what is something that Canada has that America doesn't, that you miss? And why? What is up with the milk in a bag?
I don't know if I know about the milk in a bag.
I've heard that you go to the grocery store and like they sell milk instead of like jugs. It comes in like a bag, and then you just like take your bag home, and like people have their own like pitcher devices that they put the bag in. Which I'm just
Well,
like, if you're gonna put it in a pitcher, why don't they just sell it in a jug?
see, I go back to the early days where we actually had a little cubby thing in the side of our house that opened up, and it was the milk chute, and actually a milkman came to our house and put jars of milk in that little cubby that had an opening to the outside and the inside.
Interesting.
But that's early childhood. Then you eventually bought it from the grocery store, so the bag thing, that's like,
That must be new.
wow, yeah, it's new.
Maybe that's like an Ontario
Maybe it
thing.
could be the other side.
But it could be new too. But you think, plastic was not as common just in general
True.
for being used back in those days, in the
Mhm.
old days. Old Dutch potato chips, hard to beat, especially Old Dutch ketchup potato chips.
I have heard.
Oh,
I
that-
have
I
heard
have-
that Canadians like they have the ketchup flavored chips. I've never had.
So
them.
weird to me. So weird.
If you have a chance, try them. They're excellent. I grew up, if you went out for fun, you got chips and gravy, French fries with gravy on them.
Mhm.
Now,
Poutine.
Canada's gone full poutine, which is another
Another
more
level.
disgusting level of
It's not disgusting. It's
fries.
delicious.
I'm sure it is, but the caloric fat,
Oh,
whatever,
yeah.
all
It's a
that
lot,
stuff.
yeah.
That's the disgusting part. But I don't know. Canada is a great country. They have their own issues, but I always like that they kind of stayed out of the world's muck and mire, and everybody just likes them. So that's
Yeah.
kind of a nice
I
thing.
know they always seem so nice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I spent a fair bit of time in Canada just visiting
Mhm.
because where I grew up in Washington, I would go and visit Canada every so often, and but I spent most of my time in BC, though I
Right.
did spend some time in Alberta.
Huh.
But I'm actually like devastated by the Kelowna fires right now.
There's a lot of
'Cause-
fires up there.
Because
Very
I
sad.
used to. I mean, I've went and visited Okanagan Lake and that whole area, and
Yeah.
I just all of that news is just so terrible.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Very sad. Did I
Yep.
answer your question about
You
Canada?
did, yeah. Ketchup, potato
Ke-
chips, and
Old
poutine.
Dutch.
Oh,
Old Dutch. You have to have the right brand.
Is that the
too.
brand? Okay.
Yes.
So is that like
Old
the
Dutch.
Canada version of Lay's or Ruffles or whatever? That's like
Sure.
the top chip over there.
It is.
Okay.
Truly is. Yeah.
Old Dutch ketchup potato chips.
Yeah. If you ever go, bring me a bag.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay,
I've never been to
Okay.
Canada, but
you've never been to Canada?
I know. I would like to go. I mean, I'm not as close as Washington, but I'm still pretty close.
Yeah.
So I'm,
Yeah.
Canada's great.
yeah.
They have
People are friendly.
there's a lot of and there's I mean I was really thrown for a loop when I had the whole chips and gravy thing. That was
Mhm.
real weird. I went to like a Dairy Queen for the first time, and it like came with a side of gravy, and I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And I was like, this is
I wouldn't
delicious.
expect that at Dairy Queen.
No, yeah, it was like brown gravy with potato like with French fries.
French
on it.
fries.
fries.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah, it was.
Good stuff.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Jeanine.
Oh, I have one more fun question.
Do it.
All right.
So I did some research on you, as I was trying to think of questions to ask, and it says that you enjoy historical fiction, and so if you could travel anywhere in time for 1 week, what historical period would you go to?
1940 England.
Okay, like during the war.
That whole time in there, that all is just intriguing to me. Not that I want to be in the war, but so I don't know. I'd
Yeah.
probably try to avoid the war. So maybe not 1940 if that's when there was a war going on.
Yeah,
but
yeah, okay. That's
like
great.
I love shows like Call the Midwife and
Yeah.
Downton
that.
Abbey.
Yeah, Downton Abbey would be a little older, but
Mm.
yeah, I'm definitely what's it called, an
An Anglophile.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of those.
Yeah, me too.
Good.
I just fantasize about I watch way too many British, historical period dramas.
Period dramas, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
There you go.
We for our 25th anniversary, we went to England and it was really fun.
That is cool.
Okay.
And did some of the George Fox must sees, and so it was interesting.
So did you go primarily to northern England then?
We spent a few days in London, a couple of days in Ireland visiting some missionaries, and then drove, yes, to northern England, which was an experience for Jim to do that. And
driving on the other side.
Yeah, it's terrifying, but it was fun. So it was a big 25th anniversary trip.
That's cool. That's cool.
When you guys have been married so long,
yeah,
maybe such a trip will.
For my 25th
happen.
anniversary, I'll go to Canada and get some ketchup chips.
There you go. There you go.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Jeanine. Hopefully you can figure out the rest of your talks here in a few weeks, and people will get to hear you at Quaker Hill.
Thank you. Thanks. You guys, appreciate both of you.
All right. Thank you.
Well, appreciate you coming on, and it's been a pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Great. All right. Bye-bye.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Yeah, the ketchup potato chips.
Yeah,
I hear that a lot from when people talk about Canadian food and whatever. That's always on the list, and I'm just like, I'd try it. I am the type of person that when a new anything comes out, if Ruffles comes out with a new flavor, Doritos comes out with a new flavor, Coke comes out with a new flavor, I will I see the commercial and I immediately go to the store and I'm like, I want to try that. More often than not, they're pretty bad. There's a reason a lot of those new flavors don't stick around long term, but I'm willing to try it. So I would try some ketchup chips, but
my thing is I just don't like ketchup.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what's weird to me. I like ketchup, but I can't imagine just eating a ketchup flavored thing.
I mean, it would be tomato flavored. It wouldn't be that bad. It's like a sweet tomatoey flavor.
That is true.
I mean, I don't think it would be terrible. I just don't really like ketchup.
Yeah. Don't know. If I ever get around to Canada.
Yeah, you should get to Canada. Canada's great.
I know. I want to go.
They have my thing is Kinder eggs.
Oh.
So you can't get them in the United States the way that they are in the rest of the world. So for those who don't know what a Kinder egg is, it's a chocolate egg with a toy inside.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of fun.
I think yes, but in America they package them differently or whatever from choking hazard reasons or something.
And they're not as good.
Yeah.
It's not nearly as fun. But all right. So that concludes our September edition of the podcast.
Yep. And just a reminder, if you're still listening right now, you got to this point, you listen to Jeanine, you're like, whatever, it is not too late. If it's early in the month still, it is not too late for you to sign up. If you're a woman, to go to either of the women's retreats in McCall or in Twin Rocks, or if you're a guy listening, there's the men's retreat happening at Twin Rocks this month too. So if you're listening in the early portion of September, it is not too late to sign up for any of those 3 retreats. And we know that you would have a great time.
Yep.
And if not, enjoy your Labor Day weekend. Enjoy your pumpkin spice lattes. Enjoy all the stuff that comes with
ketchup
September.
Flavored chips if you're listening from Canada.
And we will see you in October.
Once again, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to share it with others. Please rate and review the podcast so others can find it. Contact the Office of Northwest Yearly Meeting if you would like to be